Next up, we have Subodha. He works full-time in theatre as an actor, director, teacher, and light designer. He has worked with the educational initiatives, an educational research company that develops assessment and online learning tools for 2 years. Born to and raised by a feminist who hates being called that. So next up, we have Subodha. Let's welcome Subodha.
Hi, thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi, thank you, Vishala. It's a I'm really grateful for getting this opportunity to talk. Like the introduction said, I would like to take one word from Achaya that he said that I also consider myself privileged to have been brought up by a feminist. Although, like I said, she hates being called that, and I feel like I am moving more towards subscribing to the same thought process. So, what does feminism mean to me? So, it was interesting growing up for me because so my mom basically works as an activist, and she's worked with a lot of NGOs that used to go and do women empowerment workshops for rural women. So the dialogue has always been there for me at home while growing up. I think the major change that the time that I realized when I started noticing these gender biases and how we are from a young age, because of the system that we live in, and also because of the way the education system is designed, schools tend to separate boys from girls. And this I saw when I actually changed schools. So initially I did my primary schooling in a school that was started by the Theosophical Society. So there was not much discrimination. I would say discrimination in the classroom that way. But when I changed and came to a more locally run school, and it was evident, like the boys were not allowed to talk to girls, or even the other way around. And when someone actually did that, they were kind of outcast. People started spreading rumors about them, saying that this guy is like this girl is like that. So that was a little too jarring for me, like to move from that environment to this. And luckily, I had someone to talk to at home, and she made me realize that these are some of the constructs that we live in. But end of the day, now that I think about it, what feminism means to me is that it's a celebration of an individual for what she is. We should stop. We should stop the divide between men and women from a very young age, and only look at everyone as individuals. Individuals who have a sense of self, who have their own ideas, who are allowed to express their ideas. Because at a very young age, this separation made it very difficult for me to actually interact with women at a later stage, because I was not used to it. And after that schooling, I went straight to an institution which was an all boys institution. So that didn't really help either. So I believe that feminism for me would be to understand women as individuals and not as some other person. Of course, we have our differences. We are biologically and physically different, and the opportunities that we get because of that are completely different. That and all is true. But at the core level, I think the point would be to understand them as individuals. And one thing that I would like to share is where this became stronger and where I realized that I was actually a feminist was when I was working on this play 2 years ago. It was called Sandhana, and it dealt with a incident in the Mahabharata where Krishna comes and tries to make peace before the war happens. But everyone knows that it's a farce, that this whole thing is happening. And we tried to show a perspective where how the lives of women were affected around that. And mainly what Gandhari thought of it and what she thought of it affected her dasis. So when we were exploring this idea, I was in a brainstorming session with 3 women. They were theater makers themselves, and one of the big time feminists in the theater circle. So for me, in that room, after a point, I was like really overwhelmed by all the suppression that they were talking about that women go through and how they're not given a voice, especially in this time of war. There was no voice for women. I mean, the Dasis had to send away their brothers, their husbands, or their sons away to fight someone else's war. But they didn't have an agency to like say that and say that I'm not going to send my man away. And when we were discussing this, I realized that, hey, so the patriarchy that we're talking about that does not allow women to talk about this has also kind of been suppressing the men in that environment. Like, for example, Duryodhana, the Duryodhana's character, when we were looking at it, could not say no to not showing his power. So he was brought up in an environment where he had to be powerful. He couldn't show even one small iota of vulnerability, which is what most of us men are raised as. Also, we're not allowed to show vulnerability, which is a very big thing. Like, how do we deal with our emotions then? So that was like a major eye opener that made me realize that my privileges and my privileged upbringing at that point. So I would like to say that the system does not essentially allow us to. It does not recognize the complementarity of men and women together. So if you look at our scriptures, and I believe that our ideas of feminism in this country have been majorly influenced by the Western theories of feminism. But when you actually do apply these Western theories to us, you cannot really apply everything because of the diversity that we have in our country. And like Achaya mentioned, there are a lot of things that we are racist towards, and it does not come under one small heading. So in a country which is so diverse, I think there's a definite need to do a little more research to see how we can possibly apply feminist theories in our country. So I believe in Indian perspective, a lot of men need to be educated that women are also an individual and not someone that who's going to come and take care of your daily needs. So again, I would still like to end by saying that feminism to me is a celebration of an individual, of their thoughts, of their just being. I hope I made sense. I kind of like went off track a little bit, but I hope I made sense.
Thank you. Thank you. A round of applause for Subodha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Subodha, for just bringing feminism in the context of our scriptures or epic stories that form ground to a lot of things that happen in our country. And I'd like to ask you this question, because you mentioned that a lot of the feminism movement is borrowed from Western theories, and you also mentioned that not everything can be applied. Could you elaborate a bit more on that and tell us, what do you think? What do you mean when you say not all theories can be applied, and why?
Okay, so to give you an example, when you look at Christianity, the formation of a woman, she actually comes from a part of a man, like the rib of the man was broken, and a woman was formed out of that. Whereas when you look at it from an Indian perspective, we've always been proponents of the Purusha and Prakriti duality. Like, both of them are the same essence, it's just two different characteristics. So only when the Purusha and the Prakriti are totally in, how do you say, are in sync, do you actually understand the whole individual. So when I say that a lot of our theories are Western influenced, we have to look at it that the Western world is not as diverse as our country. So it's easy to form theories based on one control group. I would say control group, which would be the white population. So I would say the feminist theories are very white for us in sometimes. I don't know the exact one which I could point out to you, but in general, they come from a very I hope I'm not sounding too racist here, but they come from a very white perspective, which cannot be applied to our country. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean.
Okay.
So you have to look at the cultural background, the cultural influence, the socio-economic influence. There are a lot of factors that affect our upbringing here in this country, and it can't be generalized into one particular thing. Was my point.
Okay. So you mean the diversity that India has requires a more multidimensional perspective, or multidimensional movement in India is what you are saying.
Yeah.
Thank you.